The pool incident that changed Sunny Hollow forever. Martha Ellison's hands trembled slightly as she twisted the last copper wire around the base of the pool's metal handrail. It was precisely 3 a.m., and the only sound was the chirping of crickets and the faint hum of a distant streetlight. The security cameras were off. Martha had made sure of that herself. Tomorrow morning, when those loud neighborhood kids from the Carver family ran up to the pool and grabbed the metal rails to hop in, they'd get the shock of their lives. Martha smiled in the darkness, a satisfied grin spreading across her tightly pursed lips. No more screaming. No more laughing. No more children ruining her sanctuary. She stood up slowly, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her designer sweater sleeve. Her white hair was pulled into its usual tight bun, not a strand out of place. Martha liked things in order. That's what she brought with her to Sunny Hollow when she moved in last month. Order. And she wasted no time becoming president of the Homeowners Association, HOA. The community of Sunny Hollow was known for its peaceful cul-de-sacs, trimmed hedges, and a community pool that had always been the center of summer joy. But ever since Martha moved into the brick house right beside that pool, things had started to change. From the moment she unpacked the last box, she was already irritated by the splashes echoing through her pristine windows. The joyful squeals of children diving and laughing offended her sense of peace. Within 2 days, she called her first emergency HOA meeting. "This pool is out of control," Martha announced, standing at the front of the community room in a beige suit and gold necklace that seemed to shine with disapproval. "Children are yelling, laughing. I can't even hear my television over the noise." The next morning, residents were shocked to find a freshly mounted sign next to the pool gate. The rules were written in aggressive red letters. No splashing, no sauting, no pool toys, no running. Children must be quiet. Pool hours, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. The families of Sunny Hollow stood in disbelief. "This can't be real," said Donna Blake, mother of 2, as she read the sign aloud. It was real, and every afternoon, Martha sat on her patio, binoculars in hand, jotting down names of every offender. Her cat, Duchess, sat curled beside her as she whispered over tea, "Soon, my dear, we'll have total peace and quiet." But peace was not what arrived next. One bright Saturday morning, a moving truck pulled up to the vacant house across the street from Martha's. Out came the Carver family. Sarah and Daniel Carver had just moved from across the state with their 3 kids, boisterous 8-year-old twins Noah and Nathan, and their bubbly 6-year-old daughter, Lila. As the children ran through the yard, laughing and tossing a foam football, Martha stared from behind her curtain. "Just perfect," she muttered. More noise. The very next day, Sarah took the children to the community pool during the allowed hours, of course. The kids splashed and laughed with joy, making instant friends with other children already there. "Noah, look at my cannonball," Lila shrieked before landing with a big splash. The sound jolted Martha from her afternoon nap. She threw on her bathrobe and stormed outside, fury flaring in her sharp eyes. "Excuse me," she shouted through the wrought iron fence. There is no splashing aloud. "Can't you people read?" Sarah, startled but polite, replied, "I'm sorry. They're just kids playing. They aren't doing anything dangerous." That night, Martha didn't sleep. She rewatched the footage from her cameras, documenting every infraction. She drafted a formal letter to the HOA board and called another emergency meeting. 3 days later, the community center was packed. Martha stood in front, smug and determined. "I propose a new rule," she declared. "No children under the age of 12 shall be allowed in the community pool. They are disruptive and noisy." Gasps filled the room. Daniel Carver stood up, his voice calm but firm. "That's not fair. This is a family neighborhood. You can't just ban kids from the pool." Others murmured in agreement. When the vote was taken, it was 16-1 against Martha's proposal. The one vote in favor, predictably, was her own. Martha's eyes narrowed as she gathered her papers. "If you won't protect my right to peace and quiet," she said through gritted teeth, "I'll find another way." That very night, she acted. Martha spent the next morning calling a private security contractor who installed 4 high-definition cameras around the pool. She had them wired directly to a monitor in her living room, which she watched religiously. When Lila ran along the pool deck 2 days later, the Carvers received a $50 fine. When Noah splashed his brother during a water game, another $50. When Lila brought a rubber duck to the pool, a toy violation, they were charged $75. By the end of the month, the Carvers had received 8 violation notices totaling over $500. And they weren't alone. The Walkers were fined when their teens stayed past 4 p.m. The Gonzalez family received a warning for excessive laughter. Residents began whispering about Martha in hushed voices at grocery stores, parks, and sidewalks. "She's drunk with power," said Mrs. Pearson, a longtime resident. Martha noticed the glares but didn't care. At the next HOA meeting, attendance was down by half. "You refuse to follow the rules," Martha said, "so I'm considering shutting down the pool for the summer due to safety concerns." "That's outrageous," Daniel protested. "You can't do that." "As HOA president, I can declare the area unsafe," she said, her voice icy. That night, children cried themselves to sleep, fearful their summer was over. On Saturday, the heat hit 95 degrees. The Carver children begged to swim, and eventually Sarah and Daniel agreed. Martha was watching. From her hidden spot behind the bushes, she held the power switch in her hand, waiting. She'd installed the electrical setup over several nights, learning from online forums how to route a low-voltage current through the railings. Not deadly, she told herself. Just enough to scare them. Just enough to send a message. But that morning, as Sarah hung laundry in her yard, she noticed something odd: thin black wires, barely visible, snaking from the concrete edge of the pool. "Daniel," she called, concerned. He examined the wires with growing alarm. "These weren't here yesterday." Sarah didn't hesitate. She called Jerry McAllister, their neighbor and a licensed electrician. Jerry arrived within minutes and knelt beside the pool. "Sarah," he said slowly, "someone has wired the metal railings to carry an electric current. This could seriously hurt someone, especially a child." He followed the wires to a hidden power box in the bushes and shook his head. "Call the police. Right now." Martha, hidden in her lawn chair nearby, saw Jerry kneeling by her work. Panic surged. She reached into her pocket, fingers gripping the switch. Just a little jolt scared them away before they disconnected. They'll never prove it was her. But just as she moved to flip the switch, a firm hand gripped her shoulder. "Ma'am, don't move," said a calm but commanding voice. Martha turned slowly. 2 police officers stood above her. One reached in her hand and removed the switch. "You're under arrest for attempted assault with a deadly weapon," the officer stated as he cuffed her wrists. "This is outrageous." Martha barked. "I was protecting the community." As she was led away, neighbors emerged from their homes. Sarah stood by the pool, stunned. Jerry stood silently beside the power box. Police found the receipts in Martha's pocket. Her fingerprints were on everything. The case was airtight. 3 days later, the entire community of Sunny Hollow gathered at the town hall. Mr. Collins, the interim HOA president, stood solemnly at the front. "I've just received the police report," he began. "The setup Martha Ellison created could have killed someone, especially a child." Behind him, a projector displayed the headline from the local paper. HOA president arrested for attempted murder. Electrified pool setup to deter children. She was being held without bail. Sarah and Daniel stepped to the front. "What happened was terrifying," Daniel began. "But maybe this is a chance to reset. To rebuild our neighborhood with empathy and fairness." They presented a draft of new rules: extended pool hours, separate time slots for quiet adult swims and family-friendly hours, rotating parent supervision, and even a proposal from local teens to teach swim safety to younger kids. The neighbors agreed unanimously. That weekend, they held a reopening party. Children laughed and played during designated times. Adults chatted with drinks in hand, finally smiling again. Mrs. Pearson leaned over to Sarah. "In all my years here, I've never seen the neighborhood so together." The electrified metal rails were replaced with colorful plastic ones. A new sign was hung at the pool entrance. Welcome to the Sunny Hollow Community Pool, a safe, joyful place for everyone. And from then on, that's exactly what it became.